Okay, we are here with James Chapman, otherwise known as Chap. Chap, it's been really a pleasure of mine to get to know you and the group at Summit Junto. I've really enjoyed that experience. It's been a kind of quick but deep bond that's already forming, and so it's an honor to have you on and have you share your story with me and with our audience.
Yeah, man. Likewise, I really enjoyed our conversations through the Junto program. And you and I have had one-on-one time as well outside of that. And it's been good to get to know your story a little bit. And I'm glad we're chopping it up here again and kind of going deeper on some of those things that we may have touched on a little bit already before. So thanks again for having me, bro.
Yeah, my pleasure. So let's start kind of early life. Tell me about your childhood, your family dynamics, what it was like for you as a young chap.
Yeah. Young Chap was a wild kid. Had a lot of energy, man. A lot of just like pent up energy. Played a lot of sports. I probably had a basketball in my hands as early as 2-3 years old. And played basketball for a long time. My first love. Family, we grew up, man, we moved around a lot, to be honest with you. So I started off in a place called Maurice Paz Homes, housing projects in Chattanooga. That closed down and we moved to East Lake, another housing projects area. My mom and dad split around 8. And so stayed with mom, me and my older sister. My older sister, 8 years older than me. And so like while my mom was hustling and busting her ass, like trying to get us into good schools and get us into better neighborhoods and all of that kind of stuff, I really remember my sister honestly helping me with my homework, making sure I showered up and got ready for bed, like all of that kind of stuff, because mom just worked crazy hours all the time. She's a nurse. And so then, went to nursing school and all of that stuff. So, growing up was, I think it taught me to be very independent, right? Because when your mom's not around and you see how hard she's working and then your sister's so mature, but she's still your sister and shit. Like it just kind of, I learned to be very independent from a very early age.
Yeah. Let me just hop in there because, I'm curious to kind of dig into that a little deeper with you. Yep. You kind of make it sound fairly benign and normal, that, you're growing up in this housing project and moving from one to another, and your father, your parents split, which I get, that's like your experience, right? And I've found kind of in my own life that you can kind of like, look at something even with some hindsight and see how maybe it was really a good thing. But I think, when you go through that kind of early childhood, there's a sense of kind of minimizing it to some degree. And I don't want to say you're guilty of that, but I just want to make sure we like highlight, tell me about it. What was it like? What is your recollection? Was it just your experience, and kind of in hindsight, like, was it hard? Was it tough? Was it, what was it like to be in those kind of early difficult years?
I honestly didn't really know they were difficult until I got older and I had a chance to reflect back. It seemed normal because everybody else around me that I interacted with on a daily basis, that was their story too. It was like, oh, my dad's gone, your dad's gone. I'm borrowing clothes from my cousins and wearing my cousins' clothes and stuff, and like, so are you. Like, okay, you know what I mean? And so like, as I probably got to around like high school, I started to realize that, damn, man, how we've been coming up was kind of wild and kind of rough. But you're so young, man. You don't even know that you're poor when you're that young and you're poor. You just think that this is life. You know what I'm saying? And I had a lot of frustrating moments. I was bad as hell in school, so I would get in trouble a lot. Especially when, I'll never forget, like, my mom got me into this school called Chattanooga Schools for the Liberal Arts. And she got me into the school because she had to sleep outside in like a camping bag type shit, because it was like this new school that opened up and everybody's trying to get in, like first come, first serve type of shit. So she and a couple other people like camped out trying to be first to make sure that I got into the school. I had no idea she made those kind of sacrifices until I got older. But once I got into the school, and it was this mixed school, and there were some people from kind of rough neighborhoods, but it was a lot of kids that weren't. Man, I was just like trying to adapt to that kind of those systems and a new culture and way of doing things. And so I was constantly just in trouble for doing shit that I would do in the hood. Yeah, it was cool, to do it in some of these other schools, to do it like the fighting and the cursing and all the other random shit. In dealing with that pent up energy, I thought that it was okay to do in normal environments, but it wasn't until I got exposed to some other kids in different schools, I was like, oh shit, like I'm actually not supposed to behave like this. Like this actually isn't how it's supposed to work. So I think that was more so the experience. I thought it was normal.
Yeah. Well, and it was, like you said, like, that was kind of what you saw around you. And if you were comparing notes and you didn't have any other perspective, then, this is, kind of how it went. Yeah. And but it's interesting that, you kind of like, had to see something else to realize how you were even being, and I think this is really important because, I think a lot of kids, especially, they act out, right? And they're labeled bad or wrong, or they're not smart, if you're not doing well in school, right?
Or mischievous or whatever.
Yeah, and it's such a miss. It's such a miss because it's all about energy, right? Mm. Like you had other stuff going on that you couldn't name. You didn't know. It was just like the experience of life you were having. Yeah. But there was something in your body, this energy that was making you act another way, right? Because you had a need that was needing to be met somewhere. But I just think this is like a real miss in our society and in our education system. Not entirely. There's plenty of amazing teachers out there and people that understand this. But by and large, I think too many kids are labeled good and bad.
Yes.
Too many kids are like acting out versus behaving, and it's kind of bullshit, like, everybody's got their shit. They're just handling it different.
That's right. And everybody's got like their story and there needs to be some room for grace and empathy there. Right. So like, right. I remember in middle school, bro, like I had a guidance counselor that I would have to see often because of, behavioral stuff. And her last name was Chapman. Like we had the white lady, but she's got the same last name. So immediately, like we kind of had this little bond thing going on. And she really kind of gravitated to me particularly. And I'll never forget, like Mrs. Chapman, she would tell me like, you got to stop letting people push your buttons. Mm-hmm. That still sticks to me when I'm 35 years old now. And like, when I look back on it, it was like, I was just reacting to shit. And I was reacting to things the best way that I knew how. Like one instance when I got into a fight in school, bro, I've been writing my pen pal all year. The pen pals, they come and visit finally at the end of the year. And we're outside at recess and this kid trips me and I roll. And so I'm so pissed because I'm embarrassed in front of my pen pal and shit that when I get up and I find that kid, I mean, I just wear into him. You know what I'm saying? And so like, that's an example where like in the hood, you don't really get like conflict resolution skills and shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, right. I didn't know how to react and deal with things that I didn't like. You know what I'm saying? And she was probably the first one that like opened my mind, like, you don't have to react this way. Mm-hmm. You know that people are going to push your buttons. You know that this is just, how the world works. Things are not going to go your way and you can react in different ways. So you're right, man. There needs to be more room for like, not cut the labeling and all of that type of stuff out. Let's start pulling back the layers and get a good understanding of what's going on. But that takes time. And I don't think everybody always takes the time to do that.
Well, yeah. And I think that some people never really get that point. I mean, I'll tell you at my age and stage of life, I am still learning how to not let people push my buttons. I mean, this is like a thing that, I think we tend to react in ways that oftentimes are connected to our childhood, right?
Sure.
That inner child, right? That still is kind of in the driver's seat in your adult life. And, people still push your buttons, right? And so like I've had to learn, the concept of boundaries, right? There are times where you do need to draw a line, have a boundary, speak up for yourself. And then there's times where, you got to let things go, right? And sometimes you got to do both, right? You got to speak up and let it go. But I'm learning that at my age, to expect a kid to understand that kind of, concept, especially like you said, I don't know of any place at a young age where they're teaching kids about conflict resolution. They probably should, that that's the kind of stuff we probably should be learning, but we don't. We learn it if we're lucky through experience or somebody like, Mrs. Chapman, who comes along and kind of touches you.
Yeah. And then I'll do you another one on that same point. Like, now that I think about it, also growing up, my mom and my sister, we were taught like, if somebody hits you, you hit them back. You don't let anybody bully you. You don't let anybody run over you, because again, the environment that we're in, if I had this kind of passive attitude to like dealing with stuff, those kids would have kicked my ass all day, every day. You know what I'm saying? And so it was kind of instilled in me like, no, that's not how you handle things. Someone puts their hands on you, you send a message, like you defend yourself, you know what I mean? And so like it was kind of like these mixed messages, a little bit from one environment until an extreme other. And it took me a little while to kind of get a hold on that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well, and tell me about kind of getting a hold on it, because I'm curious, I think a lot of times, this stuff that we learn, which, we maybe don't want to really use all the time, or we learn isn't really benefiting us, serving us anymore, can still serve to your benefit, right? So like, I'm wondering, how you've learned to kind of have like, don't mess with me, if you hit me, I'm going to hit you back, versus like some other maybe more, I don't know, mature, peaceful way. Like both can really be of benefit to you if you know how to discern between the two, right?
That's right. Yeah, because even as an adult, right, like as we get families and kids and all of that kind of stuff, like we're supposed to protect and provide, right? So like that part of it is still there. Like, don't let anybody mess with your family. Don't let anybody, so that part of it is still there. But I agree. I think if I think about my own journey from like that evolution of that, it started with church. Mm-hmm. So my mom started like realizing that, okay, putting this kid on punishment and like spanking his ass when he does, stuff that's like, that ain't working. Like he's absorbing that and he's just on to the next thing. You know what I'm saying? And so she like basically forced me to go to church. Like I had to go to Sunday school, vacation Bible school, Wednesday night service, like you name it. If the church was having something, I was there, right? Mm-hmm. But what it actually gave me was like that peace and that kind of balance of like being around in yet another environment that literally kind of teaches you like how to deal with the world and like especially how to deal with conflict. Like a lot of stuff you learn in church has to do with like how you treat your neighbor and conflict, like all of these other things, Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And so that was kind of like the turning point for me because I started building a stronger relationship with God. And then it was certain things that I just didn't want to do anymore because I felt like, then I started to feel like it was inappropriate to do because of my relationship with God.
Mm-hmm. And right? How old were you when you started to develop a relationship with God?
This was probably 14. Uh-huh. So I was about 14 when I started to develop start to get an understanding of how God could kind of fit into my life and like praying on a regular basis and that kind of stuff. And so then I started to say, well, you know what? Everything's not worth a fight. I was still to a point where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to let anybody like push over me. And I'm going to like let people know that like, I'm not somebody that you should mess with. Mm-hmm. But I was picking and choosing my battles a whole lot better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because of that relationship with God. And I think that regardless of your religious beliefs or whatever the case may be, that part is like, you have to pick and choose your battles, right? Everything can't be a fight and everything can't be flight, right? It's gotta be this balance of the two. And I think that's the point when I really started to try to find that balance is through God.
Yeah. And that's great. I mean, I think that, religion can be really a powerful force. Oftentimes it gets kind of a bad rap and maybe for good reason. But when you're able to kind of look at the messaging, the I don't know, the morals, the ethics, the way of living that often is found in, ancient religions.
That's right.
There's a lot to learn there, right? If you're able to just kind of almost look at it as like a self-help book, right? But then, to actually have a relationship with a higher power, can really be a very moving experience.
That's right. Yeah, because like a lot of this stuff with religion, man, the foundations and principles are very, very similar, and they cross over a lot. And you can take it. I think you said it best, like a self-help book, right? And that can serve you well if you kind of have that perspective. I mean, and everybody's different, but you're right. Also, when I started to form the relationship and the things started to like seep in, then it was on a deeper level. Now it was kind of like, I don't even want to do some of these other things that like I may wanted to do before, because I feel like this higher power that I serve, we're going to be off. Like there's gonna be something off there between me and God if I'm acting an ass and know that I'm acting an ass with some stuff. Because like there were some things where like I wasn't a victim. Like I knew that I was doing some bad shit. You know what I mean? And that started to kind of balance itself out for sure. Yeah. Once I felt like I had a strong relationship.
Yeah, because you then have this thing where you feel like maybe you're out of balance, like you're out of alignment, these colliding forces where, the way you're being doesn't feel like who you actually are. And then that becomes so uncomfortable that you stop doing the thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, not everybody, you did. So tell me a little bit more about your sister, your mom. Yeah. I mean, they sound like pretty amazing people. I mean, your mom sounds like she's hustling and loving her kids and doing everything she can. And your sister's there to kind of step in and really care for you in a lot of ways. Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about their role in your life.
Yeah, man. Two of the strongest, not just women, man, just people that I've ever met, to be honest with you. My mom had my sister when she was 16. Mm. And so she's a kid. And my sister's dad was gone. And then 8 years later, me. And so like, I'm 35 with no kids, and I can't fathom putting two human beings successfully through life like my mom did with me and my son. Like, I don't know how she did that actually, especially at the age that she was. So that's impressive in itself. And then, man, I'll fast forward a little bit and we can bounce back and forth when I tell you this, but my sister ended up committing suicide. Right. So she's no longer with us. And
how old were you when that happened?
I was in college. I had just graduated. Last time I had talked with her, we were prepping my college graduation party plans and all of that type of stuff. So I'm in Virginia. She's still back home in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And then I get the news that she ended up committing suicide. And so like you think about it, she was the one that helped me with my homework. She was the one that stayed on my ass, made sure I got through high school, stayed focused on sports, blah, 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 go to college. And to just kind of have the rug literally ripped from up under you, that was a pivotal moment in life.
Oh, my God.
Like that completely changed my life because she was like my mom. You know what I'm saying? I had 2 moms. And so when she left, my life became very, very different.
Yeah, I'm just touched by even hearing that story, imagining just the heartbreak and the shock.
Yeah.
I mean, was it shocking? Did you expect anything remotely like this possible? Yeah.
Yeah. So my sister had always dealt with she struggled with weight loss and I think confidence in that area. But I never saw that coming, to be honest with you. Like to just lay it out plain. I never saw that. She was very successful. So she graduated from Fisk University for her bachelor's, went on to get her master's from TSU. She was an auditor for the state of Tennessee, married. By the time she had committed suicide, she had a 3-year-old, my nephew, who I'm very close with. On paper, house, 2 cars, like on paper, she's like living the American dream, right? Like house, picket fence, kid, 2 degrees and shit, stable job, good income. So no, I honestly didn't quite see it coming, and we were so close. Like when we would get into shit, we would take up for each other. Like it wasn't like she was snitching on me, the mom, and I'm snitching on her. We're like huddling up, like how can we get away with some shit? Like we were thick as thieves. And so that was hard. That was, and it still is hard, honestly, even till today.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that last part because that's the kind of thing that can really stick with you for a lifetime. And, it can be in varying levels of hard, and you can choose how to be with it and how it can serve you and what you want to do with it. But, it's still a loss of somebody that, was really, really important to you and that you loved.
Sorry to cut you off. One thing she told me, I'll never forget. She told me, and I forget how old we were, but she was like, I never got a childhood. And for some reason, like that, that's another one of those things that always sticks out. At some point, she told me, she was like, I never really got a childhood. And as I think about it, there was no way she could have got a child because she was basically raising, me. My mom was gone, her dad's gone, or whatever. So like that was one of the things that like kind of always stuck with me too, was her saying that like I never got a childhood.
Yeah.
Okay. So sorry to cut you off.
No. I think that's really important. I'm glad you shared it, and I'm curious. Then what? What happens? You shared that this changes your life. Yep. Obviously, this is going to change your life. How?
Yep. So we'll catch up. I graduate high school. I get a basketball scholarship to go off to college, play ball, and I get that news, and then I come home, right? And so it was like I didn't get to finish my test or some shit in college because I ended up coming. They had to delay, like some shit with my graduation was all finicky, but we ended up working that out or whatever. So I come home, and I immediately just like matured. It was like I grew up overnight. And it was because everybody always was depending on Toya. She was like the one in the family that got her shit together. Nobody else had like gone off to college, graduated 2 degrees, was doing well, giving people money in the family and that kind of shit. And so now that she's gone and I just graduated college, and now I've got my nephew who I'm extremely close with, right? I just assumed so much responsibility. And not that people put responsibility on me, but I feel like I just like started snatching it up and started like asking my mom, what can I do for my nephew? Like, what do I need? I just heard another gear just like hit for me. I felt like I had to like take my shit up a notch. So much so that I don't even think I mourned as much during that time because I just immediately started to assume so much responsibility. And that was a pivotal moment for me. I ended up going off to play basketball down in Mexico. So I did a season down there, got paid to play, et cetera, et cetera. But like, it was a switch, man, that just hit on for me that I was like, fuck it, I'm going to get it by any means. Because now I'm the guy. Like she's gone. I'm the guy now that has to do all of the providing and the grunt work.
Yeah, I wondered, what was underneath that, if it was about, needing to provide, or if it was also about, wanting to give back since, she had given so much to you. Obviously this message that, she didn't have a childhood. I'm wondering, kind of how that made you feel relative to your nephew. I know he's so important to you, and what was it that you kind of were thinking as far as what you wanted to give to him?
Yep. You nailed it. I mean, I poured a lot of energy into him, and I still do. Some of my friends are like, "Man, that's slick, like your son, man. Like you and that kid, man. Y'all are thick as thieves. Like our birthdays are 2 days apart. You know what I mean?" And she tried to have him on my birthday. Like she was literally trying to get him out on the 22nd, but he ended up coming up on the 24th and shit. And so, man, when you see a 3-year-old just confused, he was just confused. He doesn't know what the fuck's going on. He's crying, he's hurt, he doesn't know why. And so I made sure that I tried to make sure that he didn't have an effed up childhood. To that point. Like I wanted to make sure everything was just easy breezy for him. Because now he's 3 years old and he's already starting off the world without a mom. Yeah. And that's hard. And you know what I'm saying? So I tried to do everything I could to make sure he was going to be straight.
Yeah. And Chap, tell me, as a kid growing up, obviously basketball is a big part of your life.
Sure.
You go away, you play in college, you go to Mexico, you play professionally. Tell me, was it all basketball? Were there other interests? What kind of was like maybe starting to find its way in, or does nothing other than basketball kind of energize you until you start to get to this stage in life?
Yeah. So in college, I think I started to become very curious about business and entrepreneurship. And I kind of fell into it because I got tired of calling home asking my mom for money to go out to the movies and shit. So like when you're a collegiate athlete, and I'm a huge advocate for I wasn't as good as some of these guys that play at UNC and Duke and these top schools and that kind of stuff that bring all these fans and bring all this money for these institutions. Basketball in school, and that's it. You don't have time to work. All of my other friends that didn't play sports, they were working little odds and ends jobs, work studies and that kind of stuff, to be able to have money in their pocket, or their parents just had enough money to bless them. I didn't really have that. And so I started being curious about okay, how can I kind of get out here and get it on the side? You know what I mean? So I started selling shoes. And because I was in Bumblefuck, Virginia, and there wasn't a big finish line for that shit and that kind of stuff. So I would order shoes online from overseas to mark them up and sell them and that kind of stuff. And that's how I took girls to the movies. That's how I ate out. You know what I'm saying? And eventually my parents were like, "You don't need any money. You don't need us to send you $50. Is is everything okay?" I'm like, "No, I'm good. I've been selling shoes. I've been making, money here and there." So that was cool. And I think that's when I started became very fascinated with entrepreneurship and just being a self-starter.
It's a funny thing because, today there's so much conversation about entrepreneurship, and there's, I think, a different language, a different understanding, a different kind of support system for people to acknowledge entrepreneurs as a real profession. When I went to school, it was well, what are you going to do? You're going to go into real estate. You're going to go into banking. You're going to be a lawyer, a doctor, right? Pick a profession, right? Yeah. And entrepreneurship wasn't as much of it started, well, there's now a program, right? But I love the idea that you were just trying to figure out how to take girls to the movies, right? And you were just how can I do that? Well, if I sell this shoe, I'll make this money and then right? And like, you didn't want to ask your parents. And so it was like, there was something there that was just like fueling you that was just called life, you know? And you wanted to solve for it. But really, like, that's what entrepreneurship really should be. It's almost like it's gotten away to become this like career, you know, in some ways. And what I think a lot of people miss in it is that really you just want to be solving problems that and I like the problems that I am experiencing in my own life.
That's it.
Right? The things that I'm trying to accomplish for myself. And it's not because I'm selfish. It's because if it's a problem for me, there's a problem for other people too.
That's it.
And if you can make it personal, you know, then you can really feel connected and passionate about it. And that's just what it, you know, sounds like you were doing, like just intuitively.
Yeah, and not planned at all. It was a problem that I was facing. I saw an opportunity that I could solve it. It didn't take up too much time because I was emailing people overseas in like China. And so like I could do that at night, right? Because like I'm sending the emails at like midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. That's when they're really doing business. I can still get up and go to class in the morning. So like it just kind of worked for me. And you're right. I do think from a societal standpoint, good and bad, we've kind of gotten away from that and started to treat it like a real profession. And when that happens, you start pouring more resources into it and that kind of stuff and education around it, which I wish I had because a lot of stuff I just learned by trial and error. But that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. And after college, after my hoop dream, so like I went and played down in the NBA Development League in Dallas, right? There was the feeder team to the Mavericks. I got cut after training camp. And that's when I went back home to Chattanooga and I just started like working a job that I fucking hated. And then I started to get back into business and entrepreneurship because now I've been bitten by the bug and I know what it's like to be like, you know what? I don't like this, but I know how to kind of like get it myself and like solve problems and that kind of stuff. So then I started to gravitate more to business because I didn't like the work that I was in, right? So it's two different reasons when I started to take it more serious. Yeah.
You do have some James Harden vibes. I'm just saying. I don't know if you've ever been told that before.
Not the first time.
That's good. That's a good thing. We're big Harden fans in this house.
I'll take it. He's a baller for sure.
He is. Okay. So tell me then what? You know, you're kind of getting into this entrepreneurial world and it's for a variety of reasons. Yeah. And, you know, you've got the bug now and you've kind of, put your toe in it. Yeah. What happens from there?
Yeah. So first business I started was a mobile oil change business. I've never changed oil a day in my life. But like I was working this 9 to 5 and this desk job and I could never find time to go get my oil changed. And I was like, started doing research on if it's like possible to do mobile oil changes. I kind of looked up a lot of YouTube videos and then hired a mechanic. And when they told me, I took out a loan for like $30,000. I got approved for a $30,000 loan to start this mobile oil change business. They told me on like a Monday that I was approved for the loan. I wrote my fucking like letter of resignation on a Tuesday and I was out on Wednesday. Like I just went for it, just blind into it. And it didn't work. Like it started off cool, right? And like we got some clients and started to do some things. But every day waking up, changing oil or thinking about oil changes bored the shit out of me, right? I was like, okay, like I know now I want to be an entrepreneur and I know now that this isn't it. And I'm really fascinated about the journey, right? And so I ended up starting this like co-working space for side hustlers because when I got approved for the funding and when I started doing the oil change business, people were just hitting me up all the time like, yo, how'd you get this funded? And how'd you do this? How'd you do that? And I opened up this space for these side hustlers to come and collaborate and make these collisions. And I started to really fall in love with that piece of it. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, okay, like this I could do. Like this I really like. And I started focusing more on the co-working space stuff than I did on the oil change business and just completely got away from the oil change and started pouring into the people, right? Yeah. The people side of like this journey and making connections.
Yeah. And I think you're highlighting another really important point in this entrepreneurial journey, which is you don't want to solve every problem, right? You know, you had a problem, the oil change problem. I actually had a buddy pitch me on doing the same thing for getting gas in your car. That people don't want to take the time. They'll come pick it up, bring it back, whatever.
Okay. Yep.
And it's like, yeah, it's a good problem. But like, is it the problem that you want to solve? Is it the way you want to spend your time? And yeah, I love, and this is really one of the things that I enjoy about this podcast is you get to kind of see how you think maybe you've got something that matters, but really it's only there for you to kind of see something else that matters more to you. And you kind of keep kind of doing that. And maybe you do that the rest of your life, but sometimes things stick a little bit more, last a little longer. And so you got to see like, well, by going through this journey, there's a real need for other people who are just kind of going through it.
That's
and
right.
how can I create something around that, which you did like to spend your time doing?
That's right. Because now I can wake up every day problem solving around something that I really care about. And so I'm not going to get burnt out on the problem. I'm always going to be like trying to be the best at solving this particular problem because I care about it. It speaks to me. I've been through it. You know what I mean? I know what it takes. I've done it well. And like how I got into like technology in plain sight was from that space. I never planned on getting into tech. I'm a non-technical founder. I know nothing about like coding or anything of that nature. But I was like, okay, something that you said earlier, if I'm having this problem, so are other people. I was like, well, you know what? If the people who are in my space are trying to connect with each other and they're trying to leverage these meaningful connections for their journey, other people must be trying to do that as well. And tech can help me do that at scale. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's literally how I fell into tech. If you would have told like a 10-year-old chap who was in school acting out that like 35-year-old chap is going to have like a mobile app, like be a CEO of a tech company, like dude, I would have called complete bullshit.
Yeah.
So I just really kind of fell into this stuff, but now I have my path. Like for the rest of my life, I'm going to be an entrepreneur that helps entrepreneurial minded people. And that's it. And like that's me. And it'll look different in a number of different ways. But that's how I'm showing up in the world.
Okay. So tell me, you've created this space for side hustles and people to collaborate, which led to the idea for your current startup. So kind of tell me about kind of how that led to what you're doing now.
So with the space, man, the number one question people would ask me when I would open up the space is like, yo, Chap, who's in the space right now? Or who's going to be at the space tonight? Or can you help me get connected to somebody that does this or that? And so I was like, man, these hyper local connections, like technology could replace me. Like there should be something for people to just have this information readily available. And I got to thinking about like how I'm only where I am really because of like the meaningful connections that I was able to make along the way. And what if I would have missed out on those? Like what if I didn't have somebody to make introductions for me? And like all of this type of stuff. And so that's what led to the idea for Plain Sight, is trying to solve that problem for people who are in shared spaces, hyperlocal, to be able to make meaningful connections with each other based on their needs, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was the reason why we started the platform a year ago.
And that brought you to Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. And relationship with Dan Gilbert.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that experience.
When I went to go work for Dan, that was when I had the idea for Plain Sight back in a napkin. And there was no point to go to business school when you go work for Dan Gilbert, right? Like I learned everything that I needed to know. Well, not everything, because I'm still learning a lot, but I learned so much from working for Dan and working in venture and trying to, like, I built this pitch competition for him, Detroit Demo Day. We do $1 million annually for local entrepreneurs to be able to grow and scale their businesses. And that experience with helping people get connected to monetary capital really made me realize that I needed to pour into Plain Sight and help people get connected to human capital. Mm-hmm. And so that was the big thing. And so I ended up telling Dan, I was like, look, man, I've enjoyed this Demo Day thing. I've got this idea I can't stop thinking about. And he's like, look, go off, do your thing. I support you, but tell me, like, what are you doing? Like, what's the idea? And I was like, Dan, an angel investor and a startup founder in a coffee shop. And they hold the door for each other on the way out, compliment each other on each other's glasses. They never talk to each other because they have no idea. And he said, I haven't heard an idea that I like in a really long time, and I really like this idea. And that's when he decided to become not just my boss, but then decided that he wanted to be an investor in what I was building, because he saw the vision and he kind of got what I was going for there. So I've been extremely blessed, man, to be honest with you, to kind of have this path and this journey and have somebody pour into me the way that he did.
Yeah, and I've got a little sneaking suspicion that it wasn't just the idea, right. That he saw something in you, and you were maybe what he was investing in addition to the idea, because it's a great idea, right? But as we all know, and anyone I've ever invested in, you want to invest in the human being that believes in what they're doing and has the I don't know whether it's all the skills, but you've got at least like the kind of inherent DNA that you need to make something happen. And I'm sure he saw that too.
He calls it betting on the jockey and not the horse.
Yeah, exactly.
He'll tell you 1,000%. I bet on jockeys and not horses. You find a jockey who's obsessed with the problem, they'll end up figuring it out if you find the right jockey. And it's going to be messy in the beginning and whatever. But like, find the jockey.
Yeah.
Find the jockey. And that you nailed it exactly.
Yeah. So Chap, tell me, this past year has been something, right? I mean, you got pandemic, that's obviously got an impact on your business. You've got, the civil unrest, the murder of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and all that's been going on in this country. Tell me about what your last year's been like.
It's almost like, where the hell do you start, right? So like, I created an app for in-person networking 5 months before a global pandemic. So that's first, right? And so now...
Yeah, that happened.
That happened. Right. And like, we secured a partnership with Delta for their Sky Lounges in February. So every Delta Sky Lounge in the country listed on the platform, they're like, yep, we love this. Let's do this. We'll push this out to our members. They give us the ability to go to any Sky Lounge of our choosing once a month and activate the lounge. We picked the Austin Sky Lounge during South by Southwest. That's when we were really going to like pour it all out and lean all into this thing. And you know the rest. And so that knocked me on my heels and forced us to start thinking about how can we still provide value during this time. As we're starting to think about that and starting to work our way through it, the murder of George Floyd happened. And so now I'm trying to go through and pivot and problem solve, and I'm distracted. 2020 has been the most distracting year of my entire life, because every day is something. You've got friends getting sick. You've got people who who are dying. You've got the civil unrest and the racial injustices that are happening, right? And then here I am, like, running a pre-seed startup, trying to get that thing going. So like, man, 2020 honestly was very, very challenging. But what it taught me, Brett, was take your mental health serious. Like that's the number one thing that I am going to be carrying into this year. Take your meditation practice seriously. Take your fitness serious. Who you have conversations with and who you allow in your circle and the energy that you allow people to bring upon you. Take all of that very serious. I deleted Facebook. I got rid of some friends out of my life that no longer serve purpose in my journey and my development. And I was unapologetic about all of it. You know what I'm saying? And I kind of had to be that way to power through, to be able to find the mental space to now get into a place where we can have plain sight providing value, right? And so now things are good. But because this gift and the curse with the pandemic, we're this mix of hyper local and also like this blend of in-person and virtual, which that's going to be our life for who knows how long, right? And so now we can actually provide a lot of value there, and I'm excited for that. But man, lessons learned from 2020, you gotta take care of your mental space. You got to take care of your mental health. Because if I wouldn't have, we would have packed it up and we'd have been done.
Yeah, I am so happy that you landed there with that message, because I was curious and I was going to ask you a little bit more about kind of your sister and kind of how you have processed that and learned to deal with it. And I do want to know about that. But the fact that you've kind of landed on that being the learning, I often have a lot of personal hesitation in talking about 2020 as a year of profound learning and growth.
Sure.
For me, that's what it's been. But I'm super privileged. I am not somebody that is being, discriminated against and persecuted and who worries about going for a run
or getting pulled over or all of those things. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm also, not worried about my health, and I'm not worried about my my financial status. I mean, I'm like incredibly privileged to say that this has been a learning of growth, a year of growth for me, and a year of learning. But I think that it really can be that for all of us, right? That no matter kind of how hard it is, that you can try to improve your situation, even if it's just a little bit. Now, I know that's not easy. I know that is way harder for some people. And some people, like, maybe it's not even possible. I don't know. Maybe our system is so corrupt or off track that it for some people it might not even be possible. I hope that's not true, but I'm open to the possibility that could even be true. But I love hearing that for you, what you chose to do, despite all that was wrong about what was going on in this year. I mean, you came up with a great idea. You were executing. You're about to really take a massive jump. I mean, the South by launch is like the perfect, right? Like this is and then a fucking pandemic. Like, what the hell? Like totally out of your control. And you've chosen to take all of this and come back to, I'm going to work on my mental health. And I just really admire that. That's who you are, that's how you decided to process all of this and show up in the world. And there's no question that is going to serve you for a long time to come.
I appreciate those words genuinely, first off. And then second off, you're right. I encourage anybody who's listening, watching, whatever, man, like this stuff is hard out here and it's very, very difficult. And I have a lot of privilege as well. Right? Like I may not have the same privileges that you have based on like where I am in my life and journey and where you are in yours, but I for sure know a whole lot of people who are in worse situations that I am. And I talk with a lot of them on a regular basis. And that's my message to them as well. To look, man, you can't control this stuff that's going on. And it is fucked up out here. Like seriously. But you've got to take care of your mental health, because going back to Toya, right? I want to believe that if she would have had that same kind of urgency around taking care of her mental health, well, whatever it was that she was going to, because we'll never know, then I may still be able to kick it with her. I may still be able to have those moments with her. And I've seen people take themselves off of this earth for a whole lot less, literally in close proximity to those things. And I didn't want to get into a dark place like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're an entrepreneur. We pour everything into our businesses. We you know what I mean? It's a part of us, especially when it's something that we love. And I did have a few moments of feeling like something had been stripped away from me or taken away from me, or this isn't fair. And then like, seeing how this country that I lives in, doubling down on that shit, like treating Black people and like how they think about Black people and handle Black people. I was in a dark ass place. You know what I'm saying? And so like, I had to take care of my mental.
Yeah.
And because I did that, that's made all the difference, bar none.
You can't bring your sister back, But what you can do, in addition to making sure you know how to get out of the dark place, is you are sharing that story.
Yeah.
You're sharing that message. You are showing up vulnerably,
Yeah.
and talking about subjects that unfortunately men still struggle with, people still struggle with, right? To say, I needed to focus on my mental health, right? As the number one priority, right? You are, I believe, going to prevent this from happening for other people. And that could be the greatest thing that comes of your sister's passing, right? Is that you can't bring her back, but you can sure as hell try to help other people end up in that same spot. And just, a lot of gratitude for you showing up that way in the world and doing the work you're doing and sharing your story with me, taking this time.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, it's great, man. Tell me any final thoughts you want to share with the listener.
Yeah, man. Just everybody be well. Take this stuff day by day. It's not. There's nothing wrong with you if you go to counseling, like we all did. We do whatever you need to do for your own mental space, and don't be ashamed of that. Think outside the box when it comes to these things. Find your tribe, and take care of yourself. I would say that's my ending message is just be well, be good to yourself, and the rest of the stuff will start to follow.
I love it. Be well, be good to yourself. Boy, is that really an important message. We all could be a little kinder to ourselves, and thanks for sharing that. Thanks for taking the time. We'll make sure to let everybody know in the notes where they can find you and follow you and all that cool, fun stuff, because you're up to some really cool stuff. And it's just an honor to be your friend and to share this time with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the same. I appreciate the friendship. I appreciate the platform. And shout out to what you guys are doing for creating space for these types of stories. I really mean that. And we'll do it again whenever. We'll figure out time. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Chap.
All right, bro.